European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has arrived in India. Her visit comes as the EU and New Delhi have signalled they're close to a landmark trade deal that could reshape global trade. Von der Leyen says the two sides are on the brink of what officials call the mother of all trade agreements. The deal would link a market of nearly 2 billion people and represent close to a quarter of global GDP. Brussels sees it as a strategic breakthrough, offering European firms early access to one of the world's fastest growing major economies. The EU is already one of India's biggest trading partners, with goods and services trade topping $190 billion just last year. That represents around 11.5% of India's total trade, as the country is projected to become the world's third largest economy by 2030. Average EU tariffs on Indian goods are relatively low, at around 3.8%, but labour-intensive sectors such as textiles and garments still face higher duties. Both sides are looking to diversify supply chains and reduce strategic dependence amid rising global tensions, US tariffs and Chinese export controls. However, negotiations still face hurdles, including concerns over the EU's carbon border tax and its impact on Indian steel exports. If resolved, the deal would mark a major step for two economies seeking stability and influence in an increasingly fragmented global order. Let's get more on this now with Swaran Singh in New Delhi. He's a professor of international relations at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Welcome to the program, Professor. Now, firstly, how do broader geopolitical tensions from US tariffs to rising global trade fragmentation increase the urgency for Europe and India to push this deal forward now?
Thank you. First of all, at the global level itself, I think that tariffs tirade or tariff hikes of President Trump has already reduced the global trade to about 2 to 3%. In 2010s, it was doing as well as 10 to 11% growth rate annually. So at the global level, there is a deceleration of trade because of disruption between when it comes to US trade with either India or the European Union. From 2018, European Union tariffs have also gone up to about, I think, roughly, they have tripled over a period of time, and therefore about $350 billion of exports of EU are subject to increased tariffs. Same is India. We now have 50% tariffs on about $62 billion of exports of India, barring electronics and smartphones, etc. So both European Union and India have also directly been facing tariffs of President Trump, and therefore they were negotiating for about 18 years from 2007. But it seems those tariffs of President Trump has accelerated the mutual agreement, which is being concluded here in New Delhi tomorrow, to be signed sometime later this year. So definitely President Trump's tariffs have contributed to these two, European Union and India, coming closer and coming together.
So which sectors are likely to benefit the most on both sides if this agreement is finalized?
I think you did mention apparels it will be a major game changer. EU has about $200 billion of imports annually. India's share right now is about 4%. I think tariffs going down on that could potentially increase that market. Similarly, about $400 billion of market for pharmaceuticals. India is a leader in generic medicine. That is another sector where India could take advantage. EU could take advantage, but primarily in terms of cars, for example. India has about 4.5 million cars produced annually. We now import about 200,000 engines from European Union countries. And tariffs are about 100 or 110% right now, which are supposed to now go down to 40%, potentially even to 10%. So that is another sector where European Union could take advantage. And largely, I think India, now being the 9th largest trading partner of European Union, doesn't fit into the fact that India is going to be potentially the 3rd largest economy. So fastest growing economy of about 7+% growth rate, European Union growing about 1% GDP annually. So there's enormous complementarity, and as you mentioned initially, India is going to export mostly process-driven, labor-intensive commodities, and European Union will focus on advanced technologies, aircraft, kind of things. heavy machinery, etc. So there is a complementarity, and hopefully their trade, which is about $136 billion now, should increase much faster, and there are targets of doubling it before 2030.
Right, and negotiations still face hurdles like the EU's carbon border tax. How difficult will it be to bridge these gaps, and could they delay a final deal?
I agree with you. CBAM could be a hurdle to tackle, but that, remember, focuses and impacts primarily sectors like steel, aluminium, cement, fertilizers. They don't actually impact all the sectors. So some of these tech sectors perhaps will need greater reform and rectification on Indian side to meet up those standards of CBAM and ensure that export in even those sectors could grow gradually.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Professor Swaran Singh from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, thank you very much for joining us.